Hello, everyone. Today we are with James and Tricasso, and we have a really special book from MCDM that is now on D&D Beyond. It is Flea Mortals. Tell me about this book.
Yeah, so Flea Mortals is a book of D&D monsters for your game. And it's basically, we took a look at everything that we have learned at MCDM, making D&D products for years and years and years. I worked on hardcover books as a freelancer with the D&D team before I came over to MCDM. And we thought like, okay, now that we are almost 10 years out from the launch of fifth edition. What do we know about monsters? What have we learned? What can we change? And how can we make monsters that are fun to run and fun to fight and fun to prep to use at your party? So that's what it is. It's a book of monsters. Some of them are monsters right? Like we have goblins in the book, but we have like 12 new goblins that you can use, and orcs and humans and things like that. But then we also have a bunch of new monsters that you can add to your game. They work with monsters from the monster manual or any other third-party product, right? And then we also have a bunch of new rules in there for minions, right? Monsters that you can fight in hordes and they go down really quick. Action-oriented creatures, which are boss monsters, right? Leaders and creatures you're meant to take on solo. And how can you provide a challenge with those even when your party is min-max to the gills and level 20, right? And then we also have rules for companion creatures, which are like pets that travel along with you, like a pet owlbear, if you're interested in that. And then we also have rules for retainers, which are the same thing, but NPCs. They're not pets. They're sidekicks that travel along with you. So that is what Flea Mortals is full of. It's got 339 new stat blocks to add to your game. We're really, really excited to bring it to D&D Beyond. This is awesome.
Well, I like with anything like Flea Mortals, very specifically adding more to monsters that you already know is as a dungeon master, when you have seasoned players, they start getting used to what they think they know about the monsters. So it's nice to have these additional toolkits to be able to throw something either they've never seen before or it doesn't quite work the way they thought.
Yeah, that is huge. It's great fun, right, to bring out new monsters because it's like, how does this work? Or hey, this goblin is a little bit different than the other goblins you fought, and so it's going to work differently and kind of blow your mind when you're fighting them at first. So we love having that experience at the table, right, at MCDM, and I know that a lot of other dungeon masters have that experience. One thing that people have said about this book, which is like the big design goal, right, was that like people are running the monsters kind of as it says in the stat block, right? The stat block has these options. You read it over and you're like, oh, okay, I get how to run it. And people are saying my players think I'm a tactical genius because of the way this monster runs, which is like, oh, thank goodness, because that was a huge goal for us, was to make it feel like tactically exciting and dynamic, and that it's not just two sides of a battle running together and making attack rolls until one falls, right? We wanted it to be more dynamic and interesting than that, and so far it seems like we have achieved that, so I'm excited.
What is one of your favorite things about this book?
So I need to call out a monster written by a guy named Paul Hughes, which is called the Bread Beetle, and it's a giant that is missing their head, and so their whole thing is they look for other humanoids and giants, and they want to cut off their head so that they can place it on their body. And then when they do, their body, right, if they cut off your head, their body shrinks down. They look like your character, and they walk around that way. And your head continues to live for 24 hours on this body, and so does your headless body. So your headless body has 24 hours to try to get the head back, right, with the help of your friends. You can't see, you can't speak, but you can move around. And so it's got this big fairy tale element to it. And that was one of the great things about working with so many different designers, right? Was like there were all these ideas I never would have thought of on my own that I was like, yes, amazing. So the bread beetle, and that comes from the Green Knight poem. During the Green Knight, they call the Green Knight a bread beetle at one point, right? That he's going to cut off heads and he survives without his head and stuff. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. In addition to, I really love the minion rules that are in here. I love throwing hordes of things at my players and having them go. So those are the like my favorite creature is the bread beetle that's in here, but there's tons of awesome stuff. If you like horror, there's a lot of weird horror stuff. If you like gross mushrooms, we got a lot of gross mushrooms and things like that for you. So
Very specific.
yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do need more mushroom monsters. I think we need more vegetable based monsters in general, but What is your favorite thing about doing design, making these books? What keeps you going? What keeps you excited about design?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is I'm a fan of role-playing games, right? I've played a lot of D&D. We've played D&D together, which has been some of the greatest gaming that I've had. If you have a chance to play D&D with Todd, you should take it. And it's just so much fun to play these games. And I feel like when I'm creating content, I am imagining how I'm going to use it at my table, right? How I'm going to institute this thing. Oh, it would be so fun as a player to fight this. It would be so amazing as a person running a game to be able to drop this in, right? And it thrills me to think about how I would use it. And then I get even more excited when people tell me how they're using it at their table and stuff. So for me, it's all about how actionable is this? I want to create stuff that like people are going to use at the table, and the sooner the better, right? Like my dream is to be able to publish a monster book and the next day people are like, we used it last night, it was amazing, right? So that's what keeps me going, is knowing that like this stuff is going to be used and using it myself, right? I can't wait for somebody to use it. Might as well be me, right? I have it right now. Might as well drop it on the table tonight and see how it goes. So yeah, I feel very privileged, right? I live a life that allows me to have like 4 games in rotation going on. I'm playing all the time. And so it's great to be able to drop this stuff in. So it really is my number one advice to designers is like never stop playing if you can, because that will keep you going and keep your ideas fresh, and you'll understand what players at the table actually need.
Very good advice. What are some of the other monsters or potential like familiars or pets that you can find in this book? Because I always love showing just a montage of all the art. One of my favorite things about any monster manual or any monster book of any kind is you get just this fantastic art to like imagine what you would do with that monster in your campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a ton of really great classic monsters that we sort of put our own visual take on, right? We wanted to see like what's the MCDM take. So like you'll notice orcs have these big glowing veins, right? We wanted to like what makes orcs different than other humanoids, and we were like, what if they had these glowing veins that when they need bursts of adrenaline, right? We see them like red or white or purple energy, right? Comes up their arm and down their face and stuff like that. We have a bunch of like cool undead that are in there. So in addition to like vampires and specters and zombies and mummies and all that kind of stuff, we also have some really cool new undead. So there's the Coptoric, which comes from Carlos Cisco. It was his idea of this creature that like sucks the breath out of you and into your body. Hannah Rose did a ton of work on animals for this book. So like essentially Hannah did all this research on animals and said like, okay, I'm going to make a bear template, right? And then I'm going to say, here are the features you should add if you want a polar bear or if you want a grizzly bear, right?
Oh,
And those are
interesting.
different than if you want a brown bear or a black bear. And so we have these tables of customizable wildcats and bears and then there were some original creatures like lightning eels and death hawks that Hannah created. So all that kind of stuff is in there, but then I really like we have these creatures called the Time Raiders, right? And they're like these big like four-armed humanoids that have these visors, and the idea is that they like go throughout time. They can appear in different places in time to steal stuff and like take it and bring it back. So they're a very crafty foe. They're hard to fight, and they have this really cool, almost Mad Max punk rock look, where they're like shirtless and they have mohawks, right? And they have these big bodies and stuff like that. So Time Raiders are some of my favorites as well. There's one in there that is like a Time Raider in a big mech suit too, and the mech suit looks like it's like put together from all of these different pieces of technology that have been raided throughout time, right? So those are cool, and those are a psionic creature too, right? So they have like cool psionic powers that they can use to throw people around telekinetically or teleport from one place to the next or read minds, that kind of thing.
That's fantastic, and I love anything timey-wimey. I know, I think there's basically two different types of people in this world. They either like timey-wimey stuff or they don't.
Yes.
But
Yes, yeah. And there's plenty of non-timey-wimey stuff if that's not your thing, right? But like I am with you, Todd. Timey-wimey all the way.
what is some of your advice for anyone who is looking to be a dungeon master, to run monsters? Like what are, you mentioned some of the exciting tools that are in here that help you be more tactical. Like what is your advice for making monster encounters fun?
Yeah, I think the first thing is try stuff and listen to your players, right? Ask them, hey, did you think that was fun? Did you like that? What did you like about that? What didn't you, right? Every group's different. And so some groups may be like, you know what, I really just want to get up there and swing my sword and know that I'm gonna win. And it's part of the narrative for me, but really I'm here to like goof off in town and that kind of thing. And some players are like, I really love that heroic moment where we were riding the dragon and I was hacking my axe into its back and somebody else was holding the jaws open while somebody else was grabbed on the tail, right? There's all kinds of players. So listen to that. But I would say like the big thing is when you're thinking about tactical combat and you're thinking about adding abilities to monsters, all of that can make your game more complex. So the advice we give in this book is like, hey, your eyes are going to be bigger than your stomach, metaphorically. And you're going to think like, ooh, there's 12 goblin stat blocks in here. I'll use them all in a battle, right? And that is, you're setting yourself up for frustration there because it's like, oh, I need to remember that this one does this and this one does that and this one, right? And so our advice is like, hey, start with like 2 or 3 stat blocks. And then when you feel comfortable doing that, you can range out to more and more. And you'll see, even with just 2 or 3, how much more interesting tactically this can be. We also have a ton of advice at the front of the book for building encounters with these things that I would recommend if people are going to get flea mortals, they read, because that will talk about like we have different creature roles in fourth edition. Am I allowed to mention fourth edition here? In fourth edition, creatures had different roles, right? Like a creature who was really beefy and hit really hard, like an ogre, was a brute, and a creature who was really stealthy and hid in the shadows, like a cloaker, right, was a lurker. And so we brought back similar roles here for creatures, so that people would be able to say, like, okay, I'm going to have a bunch of ranged creatures in this encounter. I probably need something to protect them, right? So these people are artillery. Let's get some brutes up front, right, to protect the artillery and that kind of thing. So that will help you too. We have advice on that. And we also, I made, with the help of Sly Flourish, Mike Shea, we made some updated encounter building rules, like an alternative encounter building system that again works with flea mortals, but also other 5e creatures that you may have.